The sun in Orlando wasn't just shining, it was melting. You could feel the heat pressing on your chest like an overly affectionate dog. It was 32 degrees Celsius, and that's before the adrenaline kicked in. And then, without so much as a courtesy knock, Manchester City just waltzed into this match with the swagger of a side that doesn't care how hot it is, how wet the pitch gets from those random awkward Florida showers, or what Juventus had to say about it. Because within 10 minutes, City had the lead, and Jeremy Doku was already making defenders look like unpaid interns. Ryan Ait-Nouri was the architect. A disguised pass, like something a magician would pull out of a hat if that hat was tactical genius, and that rabbit was a Belgian winger with feet made of silk and vengeance. Doku didn't hesitate. He danced inside, threw a glance, and just slotted the ball into the bottom corner like it was a letter to an old friend. Cool. Precise. Like he'd done it 1,000 times in his dreams. 1-0, and you almost felt sorry for Juventus. Almost. But City's superiority complex got the better of them. Ederson, who I swear thinks he's a midfielder trapped in a goalkeeper's body, decided to play a pass that would make a kindergarten coach blush. Toon Koopmeiners intercepted like he was born for that one exact moment. He took the gift, ran through like a man who doesn't believe in apologies, and finished with the kind of ferocity that makes defenders argue about whose fault it was for days. 1-1. Less than 10 minutes gone. We were in for chaos. What followed was that uniquely maddening version of a football match where both teams forget how to do the basics for a bit. But then came a moment that made everyone in the stadium go silent for a half second, followed by the kind of confused laughter you get when someone slips on a banana peel. Pierre Kalulu, alone, no threat, no pressure, just a harmless low cross from Nunes, and he passed it into his own net. Side-footed, neat and tidy. You could put a bow on it. Juventus won, Manchester City 2, an own goal that belongs in a gallery of modern football absurdities. It was funny, but also kind of tragic, like a clown crying in the rain. Rodri, meanwhile, decided this game was his personal art exhibit, his first start since September. The man could have been a statue in the middle of the pitch and still controlled the tempo. Every touch was an essay on why City missed him. 71 passes and not a single one wasted. He doesn't sprint, he glides. He doesn't panic, he calculates. The Ballon d'Or didn't make him cocky, it made him inevitable. There was Savinho, too, scampering around like someone put rocket fuel in his cereal. Nunes as a right-back, that's not really a right-back, but sure, let's roll with it, contributing more in 25 minutes than some defenders do in a season. And just when you thought City might simmer down and take their foot off the pedal, Doku again had another attempt, this one wide, but he was relentless. A hurricane in boots. The first half closed with Juventus looking dazed. They had moments, little flickers. Vlahovic missed a big one. Glorious chance gone to waste like a bad punchline, but you sensed they were chasing shadows. City didn't dominate the ball in the sterile way they sometimes do. They danced with it, teased it, made it do things. Bernardo Silva threading passes, Reinders offering movement, Marmouche even getting involved with some tidy footwork. But it was Ait-Nouri, again and again, up and down that flank, like a metronome on espresso. He won free kicks, connected well, and every time he got the ball, Juventus looked nervous. Like, oh no, it's him again. The rain came and went. The heat stayed, and by the time the whistle blew for half-time, Manchester City were 2-1 up, but it felt like they were holding a sword behind their back, waiting for the second half to do real damage. Juventus? They were lucky to be in touching distance. They had been gifted a goal and returned the favor with a bow. You just knew this wasn't going to end gently. Then came the second half, and with it, the sound of Manchester City tightening the screws. You could almost hear Guardiola's voice echoing in their heads during the break, probably saying something like, "You know what would be fun? Let's crush them now." And so they did. Enter Erling Haaland, like a Norse myth stomping across the Florida pitch. He came on at halftime, and because he's on some kind of accelerated football timeline, immediately proceeded to score his 300th top-level goal. Let that number sit with you for a moment. 300. He's 24. Most players don't hit that if you let them play until they're 80 and include goals scored at the pub. And yet this goal, this historic milestone, add it to the list kind of goal, It was a complete mess. A Nunez pass, Haaland goes to finish, kind of whiffs it, and it goes in off his standing foot. But here's the thing, it still counted. It still went in. And that's what Haaland does. He scores even when it looks like the universe is trying to prank him. 3-1. And it felt over. But City weren't done because, of course, they weren't. At this point, the match turned into that dream sequence every City fan has where they just keep scoring and no one wakes them up. Doku exited, and in came Phil Foden, because apparently Guardiola believes in variety like a kid believes in toy collections. And Foden did what Foden does, showed up in the right place, made the right movement, and swept the ball into the back of the net like it was choreographed weeks ago. 4-1. Juventus were being dismantled piece by piece, and nobody looked surprised. It wasn't a shock. It was destiny. The fifth was the kind of goal you replay on your phone 3 times just to confirm you saw what you think you saw. Savinho. Outside the box. Right foot. Straight into the top corner. It was violent in a beautiful way. The net had no idea what hit it. Di Gregorio just looked back like someone had thrown a meteor. It wasn't a football match anymore. It was performance art. 5-1. City weren't even at full throttle. They were rotating, preserving legs, casually introducing Nico O'Reilly and Ryan Cherky like it was a Sunday stroll. The heat didn't matter. The showers didn't matter. Juventus? Barely there, save for Dusan Vlahovic deciding he'd rather not be left out of the party completely. He finished a chance in the 83rd minute, credit where it's due. A neat goal, a little shimmer of pride, 5-2. But nobody was writing poetry about that one. What stuck was the control, the complete lack of panic, the emotionless efficiency. Haaland got fouled, shrugged, Nunez misfired once, then assisted twice. Ait-Nouri sprinted into the attacking third like it was still the 2nd minute. And even after all that, even after Juventus made 5 substitutions in the span of 10 minutes, they couldn't find a rhythm. They were a band playing out of tune. City were an orchestra. Every pass was a string, every shot a cymbal crash. Let's not pretend Juventus didn't try. Kenan Yildiz came on and had a go. Cambiasso whipped in a couple of half-decent crosses, and Vlahovic had that goal and a missed chance or two. But it was like watching someone fight a tidal wave with a garden hose. There was no plan that could survive the way City played in that second half. Not in that heat, not on that pitch. By the time the full-time whistle came, even the City players looked like they knew they'd just delivered a statement. Not just to Juventus, but to the rest of the tournament. 5-2. A scoreline that barely captures the weight of what happened out there. It was more than dominance, it was theater. And City? They were the stars, the director and the critics all at once. And when the curtain fell, what lingered wasn't just the goals or the heat or the historical milestone. It was the sense that this match told you everything about both teams. Like holding up a mirror, not to their trophies or their reputations, but to their hearts and nerves and bones. Manchester City. This version of them, it's not just a team, it's a machine that decided it wanted to feel something. A technical monster with a little bit of soul. The passes weren't sterile. The movements weren't robotic. They flowed like water through cracks, constantly finding ways to undo you. They've had better opponents. They've had tighter games, but rarely have they looked so free. And the funny part is, they didn't even play with their strongest 11. That's the part that haunts you, if you're anyone else in this tournament. City don't just adapt, they mutate. Nunez as a right back? Sure, why not? Ait-Nouri suddenly looking like a regular after 1.5 games? Yep, go for it. Rodri returning from injury and slotting back in like he never left? Of course, this team isn't just deep, it's elastic. Stretch it, bend it, rotate it, and it still plays the same hypnotic tune. There are clubs that change shape when players are missing. City, they just change names on the team sheet. Juventus, meanwhile, looked like a team stuck in 2 timelines. One where they're still a European powerhouse, and another where they're desperately trying to remember how to be one. They had moments. Koopmeiner's goal was sharp, instinctive, brave. Vlahovic finally got on the score sheet and might have had a brace if he'd worn boots calibrated to this dimension. But the gaps were alarming. Between midfield and defense, between thought and action, between ambition and execution. Pierre Kalulu's own goal wasn't just unfortunate. It was symbolic. That moment said, we're not ready for this level of intensity. And not just tactically. Mentally, Juventus looked winded after 20 minutes. By the second half, they looked like they were asking the ref if they could go home early. Their substitutes came on, and there was energy, but it was the kind you get from someone joining a game already lost. Yildiz buzzed around. Cambiaso provided outlets. Thuram tried to plug holes, but nothing stuck. Nothing shifted. There was no sense of, we can turn this around. Just a slow acceptance. And maybe that's the most damning thing of all. Where City grew more vicious with time, Juventus grew more resigned. The body language, the missed tackles, the hopeful long balls that screamed, maybe something will happen, but nothing ever did. Even Di Gregorio in goal, he made saves, sure, but they were survival saves. There was no command, no anger, just damage control. And if you're Juventus, you don't just leave this game licking your wounds. You leave it asking hard questions. Not about players, those can be rotated. Not about formations, those can be tweaked. But about identity. Who are they now? What is their game plan when they're down? What happens when the opponent doesn't blink? Because City never blinked. From minute 1 to minute 92, they held eye contact with the match. They played like they were chasing something, not just a win, but a message, that they are the ones to beat. That no group, no heat, no history can stop this train once it starts rolling. It's easy to say City were better, but the truth is they were braver, hungrier, smarter. And in a competition like this, where style points don't matter, but statements do, they roared. Juventus, they whispered. But beyond the crests and kits, beyond the game plans and the slogans, football is a story of people. Not just the teams, but the individuals inside the chaos. Each one trying to leave a mark, some succeeding, some fumbling the pen. And in this particular drama, some performances deserve their own spotlight, their own soliloquies under the floodlights. Let's start with the obvious. Erling Haaland. The man is 24 and already has more goals than most strikers would dare dream of in their entire careers. And he scored his 300th goal here, off his standing foot, no less, as if to say, yes, even my accidents count. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't clean, but it was so him. A mess of limbs, a moment of chaos, and then the ball is in the net. The goal doesn't care how it gets there, and neither does he. You watch him, and you think, this isn't a player, this is a phenomenon. Rodri, though. Rodri is something else. It wasn't flashy, it rarely is with him. But his return to the starting lineup was like plugging your brain back into your body after being asleep. 71 passes, most of them calm, most of them clever, always available, always whispering to the ball like it was a pet. You realize, watching him, how much the game slows down when he's on the pitch. Time bends around his presence. And the fact that this was his first start since a Ballon d'Or win, he wore that pressure like a scarf. Then there's Nouri. What a revelation. He wasn't just running that left side, he was owning it. You ever watch someone who looks like they've been at the club for years, only to remember this was basically his second game? He delivered the assist for the opening goal, and he did it with the confidence of someone who's been doing it for years. Tireless runs, positional awareness, and the kind of link-up with Doku that makes fullbacks across the globe feel personally threatened. And speaking of Doku, his goal set the tone. It wasn't a thunderbolt, it wasn't theatrical, but it was smart, ice-cold. He's not the kind of winger who needs space, he creates space. Every touch felt intentional, every movement part of a plan. And when he came off, he left a void that Foden happily filled. Foden. That boyish smile hides a ruthless streak. He came on and within minutes found his moment, found the net, and celebrated like he's been doing this since birth, which he has, more or less. There's something quietly dangerous about him. You never know when he's going to arrive, but when he does, the scoreboard moves. And then Savinho. That goal. It wasn't just a strike, it was an announcement. A long-range laser that curved away from reason and dipped straight into the top corner. He had other moments too. Shots saved, passes completed. But this was the kind of goal you dream about, then wake up disappointed it wasn't real. Except it was. He made it real. On Juventus's end, Vlahovic at least had the decency to score. After missing chances in the first half that had the ghost of Paolo Rossi sighing in the stands, he finally buried one. Credit for the movement, the finish, the faint flicker of dignity. Coop Miners, too, deserves a nod. Not just for his goal, but for the belief behind it. He saw a loose pass and didn't just pounce on it, he punished it. But there were more stories in the gaps. Kalulu. That own goal. You can only hope the pitch opens up and swallows you after something like that. It'll haunt him. Not just because of the error, but because of the ease with which it happened. And Di Gregorio in goal. He had moments, some fine saves, but how many waves can you stop before you drown? City's subs played their parts. Reinders, Marmouche, O'Reilly, Cherky. Not all of them had highlight reels, but they blended into the fabric. That's how this team works. It's not about individuals lighting the sky every game. It's about the orchestra. And every now and then, one of them hits a solo that echoes for days. So when you step back, when the heat cools and the crowd goes home, you remember not just the scoreline, but the people who made it. And how, in 90-something minutes under the Orlando sun, they didn't just play a game. They told a story. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.